Hello again, everybody. This is Steve coming to you with another Writing Musings. This is number 14. I want to state real quick at the beginning, I know I record these in advance and some of them get shuffled and things like that. It's just stuff happens. I have to shuffle videos around and things. So this is probably going to come at an odd time. I think this one probably won't show up until March. But I wanted to point you guys back to the other videos I do that are outside of the book stuff and the story stuff I publish, which is my writing updates. I just posted an important one for January 15th. If you haven't seen that, please go back and check it out. Or January 15th, excuse me, January 2024. It was posted on January 15th. But it's for January 2024, some updates on the writing, where I'm at, things I'm finding, and stuff like that. Or things I'm running into, I should say. So anyways, in this discussion, I have 6 topics I want to cover, which we may or may not get to them before we hit the 30 minutes, but I'm going to give it a try. I know I'm bad about running long, so I try to keep these under 30 minutes so you guys aren't overwhelmed with stuff that I'm throwing at you, things you should know, things that that I've learned, things that I'm sharing with you that you need to be aware of. So, anyways. Let's go ahead and get into this discussion. One of the questions that was brought up to me recently, relatively speaking, by the time you see this, it would have been like 3 months ago. But one of the questions that was brought up to me is how much time does it take me, how much time does it take me to bring a story from zero to hero? Basically, what that's saying is, how long does it take me to take a story from the raw idea to the completed story? For me, generally, it's about 6 months. Longest has been about 2 years. So it really depends on the story. Typically, an 80 to 100,000 word story for me is about 6 months. It's about 6 weeks of working on the actual rough draft. Building it out and completing it takes me about 6 weeks, and the rest of that's just editing and cleanup. Now, that doesn't mean that that's going to be the case with you. It might take you 2 years just to do a 50,000 word story. It might take you 2 days to do a 50,000 word story. It varies from person to person. This is my personal experience. Your mileage will vary. But yeah, that's generally how long it takes me. And don't rush your story when you're doing it. Like I say, I was asked how long does it take me. It's because for me it's like I say about 6 months. That's because I have an established system. I mean, I've been doing this 32 years, so I have an established system. I know how I need to write the story. I know what I need to write the story. And I do not generally start a story until the idea is solidified completely in my notes. Now, there are times that I will write up the notes and the idea isn't fully solidified. One of my biggest problems is a lot of times I'll have the idea, I'll know where I'm going to start, where I'm going to end, but I have no idea what's in the center. So I'll sometimes go in and do some exploratory writing. I've ended up throwing ideas out, or throwing out whole book ideas, just taking a whole book that I had this really cool idea for, and I start exploring it, and I get 2, 3, 4 chapters in and realize this ain't gonna work, and I'll throw it away and I'll go to something else. Because out of all of the stories that have made it into print, I would say at a minimum, those are only 1 in 5 of what I've run, of the ideas that I've come up with, wrote down notes, and and have started, etc. like that. Let's say only 1 in 5 of those ever made it to print. Probably, that's the conservative number. If I was a little more liberal in my numbers, probably, or was that be the other way? I don't know. But if I was to go a different direction on that, you could say probably even up to 1 in 10. I can't even tell you how many stories I've started and even did exploratory writing on, and the idea sounded great, and I could picture it, and it looked awesome in my head, and I started writing it, and it just did not work, and I was like, never mind, I'm out. So don't be afraid to have that happen. That's a normal part of the creative process. There's some people that can do 1 out of every 2 stories, or 1 out of every 1.5. There's some authors that maybe 2 out of every 3 ideas successfully make it into a novel, and and that third idea gets trashed. Those are a rare breed. The majority of us, you're going to have it, somewhere around 1 in 4, 1 in 5, 1 in 10. If you're really nitpicky, it might be 1 in 20. It really depends. So, and that's individual to the person. This is what mine is, but your mileage will vary. Point 2, cool-off time. Cool-off time is the amount of time that you spend away from a book. This allows you to kind of reboot yourself, reboot your creativity, or creative side, and stuff like that. You need that. Trust me. Don't try to power through a story. You will ruin it. I did that myself a couple of times and learned my lesson. So I do cool-offs. I will do, I'm kind of an impatient person, so that kind of really rubs on me. But I also know that that's how things work best for me. So I actually force myself to do cool-off times. Good example here, as you can see in paragraph 2 of this, which is right here. One of the things I did back when I was working 410s at my job, which would give me, 3-day weekends every week, which was absolutely awesome. Except I worked weekends, so I worked weekends Friday through Monday, so my weekends were Tuesday through Thursday. So I was kind of backwards from what normal people are, but that's just how my job worked. The majority of my work was on weekends, so I worked, Friday through Monday because I work in information systems. So, yeah, I'd have Tuesday through Thursday off. Tuesday, the first half of the day was generally my reboot time. I would sleep in, I would rest, stuff like that, and then I would spend the latter half of the day starting on my writing. And then Wednesday and Thursday, I'd just go full force with it, because by then I'd be properly rested and off I go. Now that I'm doing 5/8, because I had to do a shift, and when I changed positions, I had to do a schedule shift, so now I'm doing 5/8, which only leaves me on 2 days, so Wednesday, Thursday. But I still follow kind of the same idea. The nice part is I get extra 2 hours each morning to rest and relax, so my Wednesdays and Thursdays I can just dive right in because I'm not as burned out. Because when I was doing 410s, I was working on the floor doing actual admin stuff, and that's so mentally taxing because there's so much you have to think about and do and study and research, and by the end of the day your brain is just ready to punch the clock. Believe me, you're not physically doing anything, but you're so mentally tired you just crawl in bed and die for 8 hours. So that you have to work around that. And that's another thing with cool off is you don't want to make your writing such that it overtaxes you and you're tired, you're falling asleep at your workstation or whatever you do your writing. If you do it with pencil and paper and then convert it to the computer, you still want the same thing. You don't want to be spending so much screen time that your brain just burns out, because that'll hurt your story. And if you get to a point in your editing that you find yourself being depressed, you're tired, you're having trouble staying awake, or you feel bored with the story, you're starting to really hate the story, etc. like that, you feel like you're having to force yourself forward, don't do that. Just close the document, walk away. Take a few days off, go do something else. If it's just a matter of taking a nap, go take a nap. I've done that before. You're working along, you get tired, your brain kind of stops thinking or doing the thing like it should. Just stop where you're at, save your work, go do something else. Go do the dishes. I've done that before. I go do the dishes, sweep the floor, go for a walk, go to the store grocery shopping. Take a nap if you have to. You need that cool off because you got to let your creativity regenerate. It's like I don't think here. I'll use this out of biology because I'm sure most of you know this. Like with your eyes, there is a chemical. I can't remember the exact chemical it is, but it allows the rods and the whatever the things are in the back of the eye. I can't think right now. My brain, that I got to go search the mental hard drive to find the actual information at the. But anyways, you know what I'm talking about. With back in the retina, they got the little rods and the other stuff that bring in, or the light comes in, hits them, and they translate that to information. It goes to your brain, so and forms a picture, so you can see. If any of you have ever been out in bright light, and you come indoors, you realize how dark it is. But then let's say, for example, you go in the basement and it's even darker, and you're down there for an hour, and you come back up to the upstairs, and where the upstairs used to be dark, it's now light. And you're like, okay, and you look out the window and, oh, that's blinding bright, Well, what that is there is a chemical in there that needs to regenerate in order for the little elements in your eye to actually be able to see. That's why and you should research this and verify what I'm saying, because this is recorded fact. What the pirates and some of the sea captains and some of the others used to do is, when they were up on deck during the day, they would wear an eye patch, and it wasn't because they'd lost an eye. Now, it was with some, yes, but what they did with that was they would have an eye patch over one eye, because when you went below decks, if all the ports were closed, it was dark down there. Even with the oil lanterns, it was dark down there. What they would do is they would step down below deck, and as soon as they lost sight from the main eye that's been outside, they would take the patch off, switch eyes, and let the eye from the outside that was open to the outside rest and regenerate itself. And they would use the other eye that's been resting and be able to walk around and see in the dark. And then when they went back up top, they would switch the patch back over. The other one that's a good example of this, a little bit more modern, is if you look at the military. One of the things they do in the military is they tell you to only use red light at night. A lot of people think that red light is because the other guy or the guys on the other side can't see it. That's nonsense. They can see that red light just as well as they can see white light. Matter of fact, they can see it a little bit better because it's a single spectrum light. The reason they have you use red light over white is it maintains your night vision. Because if you take repeating myself. If you take a lantern that's expressing red light and red light only, and it's pitch black outside, and you turn that off, you're going to find out you can still see pretty well in the dark. If you have a white light, which covers all three spectrums, red, green, and blue, and you turn that off, suddenly you ain't going to be able to see squat. And I've experienced that myself. That's why they say red light, because it's single spectrum light, and you have rods and cones. That's what I was thinking of. See, I told you if I let it grind long enough, I'd remember what it was. You have rods and cones in there that are, you have I think rods do color and cones do black and white, or it might be the other way around. But anyways, if you're only bathing them in red, you're still going to have, like I said, whichever it is, rods or cones, they do red, green, blue. The black and white one's not going to matter, but the ones that do red, green, blue, if you're only throwing red light at the red cones, you're still going to have the green and blue cones or rods, whatever. So that when you turn that off, you've still got the ones that do the green and blue that can see in the low light, because they're already rested up and they've got plenty of the necessary chemicals to do the job to translate the light into information to send to your brain. So I state that just as an example that you really need to factor into your writing cool down time, especially if you have deadlines. Hopefully you don't have deadlines, because deadlines in writing are really kind of counterproductive to good creativity. But if you do have them, you still need to factor in cool down time, because you need to be able to get up, walk around, do something, come back, walk around, do something, come back, and give yourself a little rest. Like I mentioned here in the third paragraphs, like with short stories, do a single edit pass, get up, walk over, go do laundry, go mow the lawn, go do something for 15, 20 minutes, come back, run another pass. If you're editing a full-size novel, what I would do, going back to my days off, I would come in on when I had 3 days off, I would come in late Tuesday, go late Tuesday, then Wednesday, Thursday, and run one complete edit of the book from beginning to end. And then I would turn around and get up, go do something else for a while. No, back that up. That was short stories. I would do that with the book. Every so often, every couple of chapters, I would get up, do something, come back, and keep working. And then at the end of that 3 days, whenever I finished that edit pass on the novel, I put it down, came back to it again the next week. So again, you need to go do cool down time. You need to take breaks. You need to pace yourself. Don't be in a big hurry. The world is not going to suddenly collapse tomorrow because of because you didn't get the book out in a certain amount of time. Don't be impatient. Take your time. Walk through it. Make sure you give yourself plenty of breaks, plenty of rest, so that you can clear your mind and keep your focus and your creativity that you need. Point 3, droids. I'm bringing this up. Bringing this up because this came up as a topic recently with some editing I was doing on Land of the Lions. Something to think about when it comes to droids, especially artificial intelligence. One of the things you have to remember is that humans, we're machines. We're fleshy machines, but we're machines, biological. Droids are mechanical machines. They're digital. They're ones and zeros. They are built on logic. That's what the ones and zeros are, the binary, all of the underlying code and stuff. That is all logic. As such, droids will not come with emotions naturally. Now, in Star Wars, Star Wars, they show droids having emotion right out of the box. That's invalid. When they first started creating AI, the AIs were very, very heavily logical. They have had to, over time, learn emotions, and even then, the emotions are very, very rote. They're very mechanical. They're very logical. They're not like humans. Humans start out, even animals do. They start out with emotions, because the way the body functions, emotions are the primary driver, right from the word go. From the moment you're born to the moment you die, your life is ruled with emotions. You have to, over time, learn logic, because logic does not come naturally to the human mind. It is a developed trait that comes through years of experience, failures, successes, things like that. So when you're thinking of droids and you're working with droids, always remember they go from logic to emotion. And living creatures go from emotion to logic. So polar opposites of each other. Entirely different types of machines, but also, different ways in which they grow. And just as a kind of a little funny aside, somebody once mentioned that technically the human body is a meat mecca for the brain. If you think about it, it kind of is, because everything in the body is centered around feeding the brain, and the brain controls the body that provides it the food. So, that's not a scientifically correct statement, but it's pretty close. That's kind of a nice little tongue-in-cheek funny, too. Anyways, point 4, draft to digital live streams. I've gone in there and I've looked at a few of these. I haven't looked at all of them, so I can't vouch for all of them, but the couple I've looked at, I've been impressed with. Despite all my issues with draft to digital right now, which that's a whole other animal. You can check out my January writing update for details on that. Nothing against them necessarily. It's just they're taking way, way longer than they promised, which is, bad mojo. You should never overpromise like they did. So anyways, that's a different rant. You can hear about that in the January update. That being said, they do have videos that they post every so often that are very useful tips for publishing and how to do it right. Now, they're not the only game in town. They're not the only one that you should listen to, but I think from what I've seen, theirs are good ones to listen to. Now, do understand they're going to promote their stuff because they are a publishing company, so expect that. However, they also bring out some very good, useful tips for people who are publishing or looking to publish, etc., like that. Anyway, so that's something to consider. Point 6: revisiting old works. This goes kind of back to the cool down thing. That sometimes you'll have old works, something you will have finished, you will have completed, you're happy with it, everything works, so you put it on the shelf. You come back to it 6 months later and you open it up and you're like, oh my gosh, how did I miss this stuff? You missed the stuff because you were over familiar with it, which goes back to the cool down thing, because you will miss so much stuff if you get over familiar with your book. So setting a book aside and coming back to it 6 months later is actually a very good idea. Yeah, it slows down your release schedule, but if you've worked ahead far enough, that won't actually hurt you. Especially if you have a specific release schedule like I used to have, which in hindsight, having a specific release schedule rather than it'll get released when it's ready actually does not work. I tried it and I thought it worked until I started realizing how much stuff I was missing and what I was doing wrong, and having to go back in and re-edit old works and re-edit because I was trying to move too quickly. So if it takes you 2 years to get a book from start to finish and out and published and everything like that, that's fine. Because if it's not perfect quality when it goes out, or as perfect as you can make it, I'm not saying it has to be God level perfect. I'm saying it has to be as perfect as you can make it, to the point where you're satisfied. You can look at it and say, okay, I'm done. I'm not going to touch this anymore. That's the point. That now you're safe to release it. So yeah, if you want to take a book, get it up, using, pacing yourself as you go through your initial 0 to hero period, and then you get done. Hey, this is perfect. Don't just throw it out the window Don't just throw it out there for publishing right then. Unless you have like a publisher who's demanding it be out immediately, which you really shouldn't even have that demand. But if you are, you are. It's just the nature of the beast. But yeah, write it. Get it up to the point where you're happy with it. Walk away. Come back 3 weeks later, 6 months later, a year later, whatever you're comfortable with. Pick it up again. Go back through it. That period away will take away a lot of the familiarity you have with it, and you will, that might sound like it's detrimental to the book, but you got to remember, now you're coming into it looking at it somewhat from the reader's perspective. And I have found plot holes that I didn't catch initially, that when I came back and started approaching it like a reader, I'm going, this doesn't make sense. Why is this way? Why was this way? Why was this over-explained? Why wasn't this explained enough? And I've made a lot of improvements that way. Stuff that I missed the first time, second time, sometimes even the third time. But having been away from it long enough, the familiarity went away, and I realized, oh, I'm doing this wrong. I need to go back and fix that. I found that out with my one of my After Off-World books. I started into the beginning of Off-World Chronicles again, book 1, and all of a sudden I realized that something I had stated in Homecoming had actually been incorrect. And it was different. It was something else that was back in book 1 that set the tone, and it actually took the idea I had in After Off-World and just book 1 and just threw it out the window. So I was like, oh good, I'm glad I found that. And that was because I had stepped away from it for a while. So anyways, now last point, we still got 5 minutes and this shouldn't take that long. So point 6, cover consistency. Now this is not something you have to do every time. Some things yes, some things no. If you've ever worked with like a book series, sometimes cover consistency, which is you have a unified theme across all the books, is a really, really good idea because it draws in readers. It draws in people. When they used to go to the old bookstores, there was a lot of times you had books laid out on the shelf with the cover facing out. and you say like you'd have a trilogy, and you'd have book 1, book 2, book 3, and they'd all have the same theme, but there was something a little different in each one, like a color scheme or something like that differentiated each of the 3 books, but they all were the same common theme. I've done that with my books. Land of the Lions has a common theme. The Earthfleet Saga has a common theme, or common cover theme. I didn't originally, but I had my cover artist was like, "No, we need to go back and change that. I wanted this to be a common theme." So I said, "Okay." So we changed the cover on him because he wanted something better, which I do appreciate him for that. He's like, "Yeah, I want a better cover. Let's do something with a theme to it." I'm like, "Okay." So he has this consistency across the four covers for Earthfleet Saga. Now the extended universe stuff, the books that came in after that, those have their own unique theme, which that's completely fine too. Because you look at Off-World Chronicles, and the different covers do not share a common theme. What they do is they portray the common theme of that particular book. Like book 1, The Race, shows people walking through the mountains, which, well, not mountains so much as foothills, but they're walking through the foothills, and which goes along with, the theme of the story. The second one has a dragon on it, which is Dragon's Gambit, which brings into focus the fact that the dragons are they're initially introduced at the end of book 1, but they really take center stage in book 2, and that's the primary theme of that book is the involvement of the dragons and everything that's going on with Simon and his team. Book 3, Gold Rush, that one has its own theme that's focused towards the story, and so on and so forth, all the way through the 7 books. So they have the covers are focused to the theme of the book, not the theme of the series. And they don't have a common theme, but again, that's completely fine. I do want to show you, though, something I have for an upcoming series of mine. Ignore that. Yeah, that's book 2. Let me go over here. Okay. These right here, I know you can't really see them. Let me see if I blow this up a little bit. Yeah, that ain't going to work. Okay. Well, I'll just do them individually. This is an example artwork. This is AI art. I did this to give it to my cover designer, Don Samora. I've mentioned him before. I gave this to him to show as an example of some of the idea I had for the 3 covers. Because this is going to be for the Empire series. And I wanted a common theme across all 3 of them, and the common theme is this right here with the guy who is looking off in the distance with his back to the camera. It's standing, depending on the location and what the theme of the story is. This one would be for Artifacts of Earth, which goes along with the, and I'm not spoiling anything with this, so don't plug your ears or anything. But the common theme with that book, or not common theme, the story of that book is this guy is betrayed, he crash lands on this planet, and he finds out that the whole universe has been lied to about Earth. That's one of the reasons it's called the Artifacts of Earth, because some of the things he discovers there are artifacts from Earth that expose this great big lie that's been told by the Empire. This cover, this example cover, was supposed to be for, or is the example art for the Riders of Kroa, which is book 2. Again, not spoiling anything, but this one is about a group of people, and this is several hundred years after the events of the first book. And so basically this is slowly percolated in the galaxy, and Empire is starting to lose its grip on the people because of that, because people are learning the truth about Earth. And they decide, rather than having a revolution on their hands, they're going to release people to kind of do what they want to do. They think they're going to be released to do what they want to do, but Empire is going to try to sabotage that. So it's kind of a false. It's kind of like false freedom, if you will. Basically, the people are deceived into thinking they're winning their freedom, but in reality they're being set up for destruction. And what these guys do is they get permission to leave their homes and go to this planet The planet's not called Kroa. Kroa is a joke because it's Kroa, I think, is Polish for cow. So the name is a pun, because, and I think I've mentioned this before, because they're going to go, they're going to the planet, and there's two basic groups that go to the planet. One group is going to be kind of Overwatch, and they're going to keep their technology that they had when they left Empire. The other half wants to go kind of Pern style, and I say kind of because you're not going to have dragons and all that kind of stuff. It's when I say Pern style is basically they go from the technocracy back to a very simple level of living, which is kind of like Wild West America type living. So you're going to have two different groups. One that's going to keep their technology and is going to defend the planet and kind of be Overwatch, and the other one is going to go down and reverse all of the technological gains that they had to go back to a very Western style, 1800s Western style of living. And this one is for Whalandria. I didn't get the image I wanted, but this is about as close as I'm going to get, so I settled for it. The Whalandria is, again, I think I've mentioned this before, it is several hundred years after Book 2, The Riders of Kroa. And this is basically more or less, where are they now? This is several hundred years after they've come to the planet. How are they living? What is it like? Etc. like that. So and if you see, like I said, that you got the sea captain here in front of the sailing ship on rough seas. You've got this guy in a field of wheat in a spacesuit. Was back to the camera staring off into the distance, and you've got the cowboy in a field staring off into the distance. So there's a common theme there with all three of them. With the guy, with the guy in the center looking off into the distance, camera or back to the camera, etc. like that. So that's a unified theme there. So that's something you can do. Like I say, if you go up on my website, you can see what the other ones I mentioned. I'm not going to show them here because I'm already 2 minutes over. Shame on me. Anyways, but that's basically how unified themes in book covers work. Like I say, you can look at... well, screw it. Let's just do that anyways. Let me switch over to this real quick. There we go. Anyways, it's easier to do show than just tell. But anyways, yeah, you have the Earthfleet Saga has a common themed cover. Little differences between them, but there's a common theme across them. Like I said before, these don't. They're all kind of story focused as far as what the covers are. Land of the Lions, though, has the common theme across all four. I mean, there's bigger differences in this than there is in Earthfleet, but there's still there's still a commonality between the four books. And please don't think that Lion in the Wind is just about lions. There are lions in there, but they're cybernetic robotic lions. It's a sci-fi. It's kind of done in the same stripe as Narnia, just from a sci-fi perspective rather than magic and orcs and goblins and all that kind of stuff. It's science fiction. It's robots and sentience. There's a Jesus type character in Meshwa. He's kind of the Aslan of the story, if you want to put it in Narnia terms. He's the Aslan of the story, and Nagago's the Winter Witch, or whatever her name was. But anyways, it's like Narnia, but in a sci-fi retelling of it with different aspects of it. Like I say, it's not Narnia retold. It's in that stripe. Believe me, it's not Narnia. It's nowhere near that. It's its own story, but it follows kind of that same idea. You could almost say C.S. Lewis's space trilogy would be kind of in the same stripe as Narnia, but from a sci-fi perspective. So just look at it that way. But anyways, that's all for this episode. And as usual, if you guys have any comments, concerns, questions, etc., and you'd like me to answer them, please let me know. Just give me feedback or whatever. I'm always open to questions and answering things for you and helping you guys out, being being good writers, being better writers, getting into this if you've never done it before, and stuff like that. So I've got, like I say, I've got 32 years of doing this, even though I only do it for fun. And if you're just doing it for fun or you're doing it for professional work, there's a lot of things I've learned that I can teach you to help you avoid the pitfalls that I went through, because I didn't originally have the teachers, the people teaching me this stuff until much later on. I wish early on I'd had that. And that's what I'm trying to provide you guys with, is, man, I can't talk. See, this is why I don't want to do audiobooks, and you'll understand it when you listen to the January update. But yeah, so anyways, I'm trying to help you guys who want to be authors or are authors and want to up your game, and use my 32 years of experience and everything I've gone through to help you avoid having to go through that yourself. So anyways, I will catch you guys later.